So Louis Vuitton launched their La Beauté line with £120 lipsticks. That equates to $160. Massive talking point in the beauty industry because no one has lipsticks that expensive, at least not for their first line. And they are refillable, but the refill is also £52. But the big question for me is, does this texture feel any different to other luxury lipsticks that sit more at the £40 mark, which are a third of the cost? Today I'm going to compare Louis Vuitton and other luxury lipsticks from Chanel, Dior, Prada, Gucci and Valentino. I have already done a video on my first impressions of the Louis Vuitton lipsticks, both in the satin and matte formulas. I'm only going to talk about the matte here, but I will summarize very quickly. The packaging is definitely where Louis Vuitton stands out the most. This is absolutely gorgeous. Every detail has been thought about. It's the most luxe in hand. That's reflected in the price. I did say before the refills you can't use on their own. I think technically you can, but I haven't been able to do that yet. Realistically, as with most components, they make the most sense together. As for the formula, the main thing that LV seems to highlight is the fact that it's skincare based ingredients and you have a lot of natural origin ingredients. Rose, jasmine, mimosa wax are 3 ingredients they call out. There's also shea butter and hyaluronic acid. Honestly, it is a really nice formula. When you feel the formula on the lips, it has this powder-like feel to it, but it doesn't feel overly dry or uncomfortable. It has this soft blurring effect. It doesn't drag. It doesn't feel uncomfortable. It's long wearing. It is just really nice to use. The scent is very subtly rose. It's not overpowering. It's a really nice one to wear. Does it feel dramatically different from other matte lipsticks that I've tried? No. And I guess that's what made me curious. And if we think about the formula, a lot of the comparisons are going to be Pat McGrath because she is the creative director behind the brand. But what I mentioned in my last video is that actually comparing it briefly to Pat McGrath, you are not getting a Pat McGrath formula in Louis Vuitton packaging. Differences in the ingredients, the feel, the fragrance, which means that it's definitely not the same lipstick. Does this stack up against other luxury lipsticks that are retailing for a third of the cost? So I wanted to compare it with ones that I knew pretty well already. So we're going to start with Dior, and this is the Rouge Dior Couture lipstick. This is the velvet texture. They did used to have a matte, but now I don't see many shades. I think they're trying to phase that texture out in favor of the velvet, which is described as a luminous matte. They reformulated recently. It goes for £41. They did make some slight updates with the packaging. I think the lid is now magnetic. Very nice packaging amongst all the lipsticks that I'm going to talk about. All really nice packaging, just not as detailed as LV goes into. The product itself, I think it didn't used to be refillable, but now it is, and the refills go for £33. This is kind of standard in terms of how refills look, but of course if you didn't need the case and you just want the refill, yeah, it's a nice option. As I said already, it's described as a luminous matte, and in terms of ingredients, there's flower extracts, oils, shea butter, so not vastly far away from LV, and this is an LVMH owned brand, so I guess a natural talking point is, are the Dior lipsticks similar to Louis Vuitton? It does feel similar, but definitely not the same. But it's definitely long wearing. I love that little slight sheen that it's got to it. I love this sort of luminous feel. The velvet texture is really nice. This scent is definitely more noticeable than the others. It smells kind of fruity and like berries. All of these have scents. I think that's a common theme amongst luxury products. They tend to put scents in it, I guess, to add to the experience. Overall, I really like this lipstick at £41. This is a good one. So next I'm going to move on to the Prada Monochrome. This is probably the one that I was using the most at one point. This is a hyper matte texture. I think they have 2 mattes and this is the more matte of the 2. So this goes for £40. I love this gold and silver housing. I guess it's a mix of metal and plastic, similar to the Dior, and it is also refillable. Similar to what I was saying about the Dior, is the components like a standard refill. But when we look at the bullet, I really like this texture again that we've got, similar to the Dior. And I do like the Prada logo. The sharpness of the bullet does make it easier to apply. It's a really nice lip. Magnetic closure as well. This texture is the ultra matte. You definitely see more of a powdery, blurry finish. And in terms of the ingredients, it's kind of skincare based as well. It's infused with bifidus extract, which is a probiotic, and it's also got jojoba oil and all the usual suspects that you tend to see in lipsticks. That whole skincare in makeup vibe is definitely there. And I suppose stronger with this lipstick than some of the others that I'm going to speak about. When I first posted my Louis Vuitton video, someone asked me to compare the texture of the Prada. And I will say, of the ones that I'm going to speak about here. The Prada is the most similar. Then we have the Chanel Rouge Allure Velvet. So this is one of many lipsticks Chanel does. I purposely picked the one that is priced at £42 because I really want to see how these stack up. I love the packaging on this one. Simple, but I love that little click packaging. The bullet is not refillable. I like the simplicity of just Chanel black and gold. Sometimes that's all you need. And for £42 in comparison to 120, not bad. It doesn't feel as luxury as the LV, but it still feels really nice. So this one is actually my favorite texture. This is the most comfortable for me to wear. It's more of a creamy matte formula, so still matte, but it has more moisturizing properties to it. A very, very similar color to the LV. The formula is completely different. It's really flattering on, like Dior. It has shea butter, jojoba oil, again, the usual suspects. And it's also described as a luminous matte. I think there's meant to be pearl pigments in it, but I wouldn't say it's luminous in the same way as the Dior. The Dior almost has like a slight sheen to it. I think I said that already, but the Chanel just looks creamy and more moisturizing than most matte lipsticks. And then kind of similar to the Chanel is the Gucci, I'm going to butcher this, Rouge à Lèvres matte, which just means matte lipstick. This comes in at £38, not refillable, but I love the packaging. I think the Gucci has more unique packaging and more interesting cases. They're just, I don't know, they feel a bit more vintage, a bit more fun, a bit more playful. They have more creative shades in some ways. There's slight weight in the lid, but it's not that heavy. There's no magnetic closure, but it's only £38. And I say only, it's still £38. That's quite a lot of money. Out of all the others, it's the lowest price. Scent is a mix of floral notes. Kind of similar to the Chanel, it has this creamy matte texture. So matte, but it doesn't feel too drying, doesn't tug. It looks more flattering on the lips, I guess. I do in general prefer satin lipsticks or creamier lipsticks or glosses. So when it comes to a matte formula, what I'm looking for is something that is a little bit more creamy, a little bit more hydrating, and that's what I get from this. And Gucci is a little bit more vague when it comes to the ingredients, kind of just described it as having a mix of pigments and waxes. But that said, it's still a very nice lipstick and I really like it. Last but not least by any means is the Valentino Spike Valentino lipstick. This is priced similar to the Gucci. Again, more exciting packaging. It feels very Valentino because they've got the spike detail. They've got this really skinny bullet that looks really nice. I love this, how skinny it is. Also, refillable. It's a little bit unique because with the Dior and the Prada, they were kind of standard looking, whereas this feels a tiny bit more bespoke. The refill is £35, which is a really strange price point given the whole thing is £38. Why would you pay £3 less for the refill? We can get the whole thing for £38. Again, magnetic closure. It feels really nice in hand, slightly weighted. The texture itself, creamy, beautiful matte, like the Chanel and the Gucci. Really nice. Again, kind of another favorite, but again, that might be because I prefer a creamy matte in general. So when we compare them side by side, what is it that sets LV apart from the others? Is it the formula? Is it the texture? Or is it just the packaging? Honestly, it's kind of all three, but texture-wise, it is the most similar to the Prada and the Dior. They have a similar finish, they're comfortable, long wearing, while still being very matte. So if you want a luxury option that's a very matte finish, Prada and Dior are great options. Chanel, Valentino, and Gucci have a more creamy matte finish, slightly more moisturizing, more comfortable, but also when they're on the lips, I don't know if you can tell they're actually that different. So what pushes Louis Vuitton into this completely other price bracket is definitely the packaging and the name. Obviously you're paying for the name with a lot of the other brands, but you're really paying for it with Louis Vuitton. Even if we look at the refill, there's a lot of nice details on here, but generally the refill makes up about 3/4 of the cost. The refill, whilst expensive, isn't that far away from other luxury brands. The outer housing is over double the price. It's the collectible packaging, all the details that have gone into it that I guess make this so much more expensive than the others. The question, can you get a luxury matte lipstick for less? Of course you can, absolutely. I guess that wasn't really in any doubt. We all know this is wildly expensive for what it is. Dior, Prada, Chanel, Gucci, and Valentino all offer really beautiful matte lipstick formulas at a third of the cost. And I said this in my last video, but you as the wearer might be able to tell the differences between the formula. So again, it might just come down to personal preferences, but in terms of how it looks on the lips, there's minimal difference between all of them, honestly. So whilst the Louis Vuitton is a really nice formula and I love the packaging, it isn't worlds apart from any of the other lipsticks that I spoke about here. It really comes down to if you just want the LV lipstick as a luxury accessory, or you actually care about a great matte lipstick, because the truth is you can find a similar finish elsewhere for a lot less. And once it's on the lips, can you really tell the difference? I've been wearing a mixture of Chanel and Louis Vuitton because the shades are so similar. Can you tell which lip is which? Subscribe if you want to see more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!